he turned around, looked at Taylor, and they started to play White Limo, and he just gestured to the mic. That was my cue. So I got to front the Foo Fighters. It'll stay with me forever, that moment.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Foos Files, the podcast for fans of the Foo Fighters. Hope you're all having a great week. It's Dan here, and we've got a full-length interview this week. I know it's been a while since we've done one of those because there's been so much going on in the world of Foo Fighters that we've had to discuss and to react to. But things do seem to have quietened down, at least for now. So it's back to doing some long-form interview content for you. And I'm joined by Jay and Ollie from the tribute band, the UK Foo Fighters, this week. It's quite timely in a way because obviously we've just had those pop-up shows over here in the UK. And the UK Foo Fighters, and Jay, the singer in particular, were central to arguably the most famous pop-up show of them all when the Foos played at the Brighton Concorde 2 back in 2014, which we're going to hear about shortly. This one has been a long time coming in a way because Jay and I chatted last year before I launched the podcast to quite some length about his life following the band, becoming a musician and then eventually forming the UK Foo Fighters. But as you're going to hear, a lot has been happening with the guys over the past 12 months as they mark the 30th anniversary of the Foo Fighters with some pretty exciting activities of their own. So we thought we'd just, bring it up to speed and do another interview. And we've got Ollie, the drummer, joining us this time as well. And, I mean, it's a Foo Fighters podcast, so you can never have enough drummer chat, can you? So we might as well go ahead and jump straight in. Welcome to the Foos Files podcast, Jay and Ollie from the UK Foo Fighters tribute band.
Just so you know, there's a little pressure tonight because England's premier Foo Fighters tribute band, UK Foo Fighters, is in the house, I think. We had a little talk about this upstairs. We don't want to shit the bed in front of UK Foo Fighters. Because you know they're watching us like, that's not how it goes. Yeah, this one's for them.
So we're joined this week by Jay and Ollie from the UK Foo Fighters tribute band. How you doing, guys?
Good, Dan. Good, thanks, Dan.
We're kind of going back to front a bit here because you've just had a gig at the weekend, which was a bit exciting because you gave your favourite toy its first outing. So how was that?
It was good. I mean, it was. We didn't rehearse it, so it was a sound check. And let's give it a go. We're going to play it better, this weekend and the weekend after, for sure. And by then I might have learned the words. So, we got through it. It was all right.
Sometimes we'll decide between us that we want to put a song in the set that we haven't played for a while or that we think would be easy enough to just play in soundcheck. And the new song kind of happened like that in terms of we just thought, well, we'll just try it and naturally just put it in the set list without having ever played it. So it could have gone disastrously wrong in soundcheck, but we actually surprised ourselves, didn't we? Jay and I had a little moment at the end where we were just like, yeah, that was good. We did all right there.
Well, Ollie said, we can't do it unless you've got the distortion on your vocals. It just won't sound right after the first attempt. So on the second attempt, I thought, okay, let me give it a bit more. Let me make the distortion and chuck in some and make it sound like I have got distortion on my vocal, like Dave's got on his. But I've ordered that pedal anyway. We'll have that distorted vocal for this weekend. In Carlisle.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I always wonder with tribute bands what it's like when band brings out new material and you're in the midst of gigging because, I mean, you guys are, you gig a lot, don't you? And you've got to find time, haven't you, to chuck the new songs in or learn the new songs. So I always find it interesting how that comes about. But in this case, it was just literally sound check, let's go.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly enthusiastic when there's new music that comes out from the Foo Fighters, just because I guess in the same way that, you know, they're playing a set list, we're playing a set list, and if there's no new music, the set list does change, but it feels really, really fresh when it's brand new music, you know. I think, would you agree, Ollie?
Yeah, I think especially when you kind of sense that that there might be some new stuff on the way, and you kind of get little teasers and snippets of stuff. I know we've previously gone off an Instagram or a YouTube clip of a riff or something. We've straight away been like, right, where will that fit in a song that we already play, just to kind of tease it and stay on top of it. So when you've got a whole album's worth of that stuff coming out, it does, you know, like we don't rehearse very often, just because, like you touched on, Dan, we play quite a lot as it is. But sometimes when we do rehearse, especially if there's like a lot of new album material to pick from, it kind of gets the juices flowing, because we figure out what they might play, or pick a song that we think they probably won't play, and then that kind of becomes a staple of our set. Like I don't think there's been a show where we've not played Under You off the last album since it came out. I don't think.
No, I think it's been in there since then. Yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, it's a great song. It would almost replace Learn to Fly if the audience would let you replace it with Learn to Fly, but they probably wouldn't, because you have to play Learn to Fly.
Some of those songs you got to play.
But at least it saved Ollie from the pain of, you know, Jay saying, "Oh, what should we sound check with?" Because probably for about 10 years we sound checked with Learn to Fly, and that was just because the lead guitar, just for setting levels, really. It was my go-to song, even though everyone else was thinking, "Oh my God, not again." But
we never discussed it. It was just count in and go, because everyone just knew it was Learn to Fly. Whereas now we try and mix it up a bit, but that does cause confusion, because he and I will go, what do you want to play then? Because we don't have like a go-to anymore.
So just while we're on the subject of you giving the new song an airing, what do you make, not just as musicians, but as fans, what do you make of the new music, of what you've heard so far?
Do you know what? I always, if I couldn't talk you through every album and how I felt when it came out, but there has been albums that I wasn't so sure about when it first came out that I love now and loved quite soon afterwards. Just mixed feelings, really. I think some songs just get you straight away and you love it straight away. Other songs you warm to. And I think everyone knew. I think everyone had a feeling of how the new song was coming out. As in, you know, Dave said that they'd not put a load of time into it. They were just jamming, and they just came up with some tunes and didn't want to overthink it. And, you know, and I think you get that from certainly from Your Favourite Toy. Maybe less so with Asking for a Friend, but yeah, I just think it's exciting because it's something else to play. You know, we're not writing our own music in this band, so getting new tunes to have a go at is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with especially the latter part of that. Like it's almost the same way that it is for them in terms of it generating a new buzz, because, you know, even though it's their music, they must get bored of playing Alandra or whatever every night for years and years and years, and they play, you know, they've played hundreds of shows. Every album, it feels like every album they put out, they'll play they're just everywhere for a year or 2 years, and that must get tiresome looking at set lists where they know they've got to play, the hits and what people want to hear. So when you've got new music, there's a new energy around it, and there's a new there's like, it's almost like, what's the next concept? Like, is it a new guitar, or is it a new kind of sound? And that's kind of the cool thing from from what I've heard from the album's called Your Favorite Toy, isn't it? Yeah. So far, it's kind of punky and something that they've not really touched on for a while because they've been messing around with disco beats, which there is a little bit in Favorite Toy, which I realised while I was playing on Saturday. I was like, I'm basically just playing a disco song for 3 minutes, but just with massive guitars. But it sounds like raw, which is something that I feel like they've been very polished the last few albums. So it's fun for us to be like, okay, we get to kind of let loose and let all that big wall of noise pummel people in the face like we like to do,
Yeah, this could be an interesting album from the point of view of doing what you guys do, because I don't know how much of Dave's like press that he did recently that you listened to, but he actually said, some albums are recorded to be albums and like intimate listening experiences, but some albums they're built for the stage. And he said he feels like this one is built for the stage, and he compared it to Wasting Light, where he said they just rehearsed it so much that they could literally get up on stage and play the whole album. So it'll be interesting if that bears fruit in the summer, whether they do go big on the new songs.
Yeah, I think we have the benefit of like, okay, we have a few hundred people in a room or whatever, and we kind of have a bit more creative freedom because we have that kind of more intimate experience going on where we can get away with playing maybe 7 or 8 deep cuts that the hardcore fans want to hear. But when you've got a stadium full of 60, 70, 80,000 people, it's they all want that mass sing-along, and they want the big crowd pleasers that everyone knows, and that makes that experience what it is. I can't imagine that the same people would be thrilled if they played like they opened with A320 at Wembley Stadium and went straight into, what's that song you like, Doll?
Doll, yeah. Well, I've been saying it's funny you should say that about that song, Ollie, because I've been saying for a while now we should do Doll into Monkey Wrench as per the album, but we've never done it yet.
There'd be me, you, maybe Dan, and about 8 other people in the UK that'd love that idea.
I don't know. I think there's more than you think, but I know your point taken though, because stadium gigs, you've got, it takes all sorts, doesn't it? You've got your group of hardcore fans, but then you've got your people who maybe go to 1 or 2 gigs a year, and the Foo Fighters are in their hometown, so they've gone, well, we might as well go and check it out, and they'll know the radio hits, etc. So it's set list politics. You'll know all about that. It's a tricky business, isn't it, when you've got 30 years worth of material?
Yeah, I'm finding that really hard.
Which bit are you finding really hard?
The set list. Writing a set list. Like every year that we write set lists gets harder, because it's like, okay, we're playing, like on Saturday we played 3 songs we've never played before. We don't just add those to the list and everything else stays the same. It's like, okay, well, which 3 do we now take out? And it's creating variety is the hardest element of it. And I see why for the longest time the Foo Fighters just played the same 25 songs, just to lock in and be like, well, we won't think about any of the songs. Whereas Jay and I like to test limits of what's possible at short notice.
My memory. Yeah.
I was going to say an interesting point on that one, because let's say you're doing like 20 to 30 songs in a gig. How many have you actually got in your locker at any given time that you'd say you're comfortably oh, we
don't
could
know.
just drop this one in tonight, or let's change.
I don't know.
We did a gig last week, but let's change 6 or 7, for example, from last week. How many do you reckon realistically you've got?
There's
rehearsed?
2 numbers. There's at the start of the year, I went on Setlist FM because all of our setlists get put on there, and looked at all the songs that we'd ever played from 2013. I think the first setlist got put on to now, or till end of 2025, and it was 70 odd songs or something, different songs.
Was it?
I reckon realistically, it's at right, like this weekend, for example, there's probably 45 that we could do, maybe 40 out of 25.
Oh, we could do more than that.
Do you think? Is this you
it'd be a train wreck.
Queue of
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to. In some ways, I'd like to mix it up more than we do, but we can't because we have the constraints of the greatest hits plus whatever takes our fancy or whatever people request. You know, I mean, I'm a big one for. You know, I'll message Ollie and say, "Oh, I've had a message from someone coming to the show this weekend, and they've asked us if we can dedicate this song." Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't on the set list, but let's put it on the set list. You know, because if there's only 1 or 2 people who ask for a dedication, I like to try and deliver and play that song if I can. Unlike someone who messaged us when we were on stage on Saturday night at 5 to 9 saying, "Can you play this song and dedicate it to my wife?" I messaged her back this morning saying, "We were on stage. Like, give me some notice."
People probably don't realise that we look at our own social media like there's not like another person we're on stage. Like, we're on stage, so none of us have seen it.
Yeah, it's a little bit unrealistic, 5 to 9, isn't it? But anyway, we jump forward in time quite a bit, but to go back to the start a little bit, because I wanted to talk about really how you guys got into this. And I mean, first of all, Jay, I mean, I know we've spoken in the past, but a lot of people won't know. Obviously, you know, you're playing Dave Grohl, but you've got a kind of an accidental coincidence, haven't you, that goes all the way back to, well, when you were born, doesn't it? So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, Dan, I was my mother was staying with some friends in Virginia, in West Virginia, when she was carrying me, and because of a bit of a complication whilst carrying me, the doctor said that she shouldn't travel home until I was born. So I was born in West Virginia, about 70 miles from where Dave grew up. And it's interesting you bring that up because I've been back to the States quite a bit over the years, but I've spent my lifetime talking about one day going back to Virginia and West Virginia and Washington, D.C. With my mother. She's 85 now, and you probably don't know, but last year I finally did it. She and I flew out to Washington, D.C., and we drove up to Martinsburg, West Virginia, went to the hospital I was born at, and did some great stuff with her, just she and I. Yeah, I mean, she's the person who got me into music and got me playing an instrument. So we have quite a good connection, you know, with that from a music perspective. But it was great to go back. And I said to my mum before we went, you know, I am 70 miles from where Dave grew up, and there are some really cool things, you know, in Washington, D.C. and Virginia that I might have to drag you along to, you know. So we did some good stuff. We went to Inner Ear Studios in Virginia, and I recorded some vocals there, did a session in there. And then we also went to the 930 Club to see a couple of punk bands in Washington, D.C. Yeah, it was great. Just me and my mum.
That's amazing. So in here's where they did Feast and the Famine, right?
It is. And that there, the vocals are laid down while I was there, which we haven't got around to it yet, but the plan is to go into a studio here in the UK and lay down the song, do a cover, and use all the vocal takes that I did at Inner Ear Studios. So that's the plan when we get around to it.
That was good.
That's pretty cool. That was very, very cool. So, did you meet? Is it Donzi and Tara, the guy who?
Yeah,
who runs it?
I did. I'm looking behind me now because I bought his book. Where is it? I'll show it to you, but your fans won't be able to see it. But yeah, he had a book produced, which is fantastic. It was on Amazon. When I got home, I had a look at it. I managed to find it, and it's got literally like everything in it for the history of that studio, etc., etc. But yeah, Don and his wife was fantastic. You know, they literally welcomed us in like we were old friends, and we ate biscuits and had cups of tea, and then he said, "So do you want to record something?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I did 3 or 4 takes of the song, and I've been in touch with them since. You know, just kind of, yeah, he's just very, very down to earth guy. I didn't know how he'd react to when I reached out to him before we went to Washington. But he said, "Yeah, that sounds great." Chuck some dates at me, and we booked it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So for both of you, really, tell us about first hearing the Foo Fighters and how you became fans.
I used to work with a guy who handed me a copy of The Colour and the Shape. He'd burnt a CD of his CD, and he gave it to me. Wow. And he gave that to me, I'm pretty sure it was 99 or 2000. Because when was the 1x1 tour? Was that 2001, 2002?
2003 or 4.
It was 2003 because my first show was the 1x1 tour. It was 2003. You're right.
Yeah, me too. I ended up going with the guy who gave me the Colour and the Shape CD. We went to see the Foos at Manchester on the 1x1 tour.
Nice.
So yeah, that's where I started.
I think I started with Echoes. Just my stepdad was at Wembley in 2007. Was it 2007 or 2008? Anyway, whichever one it was, he got me a T-shirt and a Echo Silence, Patience and Grace CD, and I think I remember hearing Taylor's snare drum in the intro to Pretender, and my eyes lit up like, oh my god, what is that? Why does that sound so good? And then, ironically, the rest of that album is kind of nothing like the first song in terms of it being like a great, powerful rock song. But probably 2007, and then like a lot of people sort of my age, Wasting Light kind of set a standard of the gold standard for what a rock album should sound like, and my whole thing is kind of the energy as a drummer behind kind of the driving force behind a song, and Wasting Light is just like a sucker punch 11 times. So yeah, Echoes was first, and then Wasting Light was, I mean, to this day, still my favourite album of theirs for sure, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that. So how'd you go from that to, I mean, tell us about starting the UK Foo Fighters. How did that all come about?
It wasn't premeditated. It was not a plan of mine to, be in a tribute band. I was fronting a covers band called Speedster. We'd been playing locally for 3 or 4 years in my town, and we had 3 songs on the set list. I think we had Monkey Wrench, maybe Everlong, and a couple of others that we used to rotate, and it was amongst Green Day, Stereophonics, Queens of the Stone Age, The Jam, all sorts of stuff. But I remember getting a force of like Foo Fighters fans coming to the gigs, and really that was when the whole night kicked off. Was when we played Foo Fighters, and the room went nuts. And that's all I planned to do. I had aspirations to play further afield, but nobody really books a cover band that's playing generic covers to go from one city to another, because they've got their own bands playing covers in their city. And then the place where I used to play at booked a tribute band. I think it was a U2 tribute band and an Oasis tribute band. And I remember saying to him, you book these bands to come and play from other places around the country. How do they get the gigs and stuff? Do they have to like send you a CD, with really well recorded songs and, and he said, well, no, they're a tribute band. They must be able to do it. Otherwise it wouldn't be a tribute band. So he just booked them. And around the same time there was a big festival in Yorkshire that was looking for bands, and I got this call from a guy saying, do you want to come and headline the festival? And I was like, headline a festival? Wow, fantastic. Yeah. What do you want us to play? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you want us to play? We play all sorts. He goes, well, aren't you a Foo Fighters tribute band? And I said, no. He said, well, everyone's telling me about your Foo Fighters stuff, and I just thought you were a Foo Fighters tribute band. I said, no, we're not. But, is that the end of it then? He said, well, can you play some more Foo Fighters songs? I said, I'll talk to the guys anyway. So in the end, I said, yeah, I don't want to miss this opportunity to headline a festival. We need to come up with like 45 minutes of Foo Fighters songs. So we better start learning some songs. And then he contacted me a couple of weeks later, and he said, right, I need to do some artwork, and I need to bill you as headlining. What's your band called? Well, it's called Speedster. He said, well, that's not a Foo Fighters tribute band name. And I said, I know. He said, well, I need a name. And I was in the Midlands. I'm into like American classic cars and stuff. And I was in the Midlands at an American car show. And I was on the phone, and I was looking at a poster of the band that was playing that night. And they were called UK Beach Boys. And I said to him, well, that's not a cheesy name for a tribute band, which I didn't really fancy the idea of something that would be typically tribute in name. So I said, bill us as the UK Foo Fighters. Nothing strategic or planned about it at all. I just needed a name, and I needed a name quick.
Simple, and it works, isn't it? And it's recognisable. So how did you get involved then, Ollie?
I got involved initially. I went to see the UK Foo Fighters in 2012, which was the show we were talking about the other night, Jay, the Dr. Feelgood thing. And just a love of Foo Fighters and it being an accessible thing to go and watch a tribute band, which is, you know, why tribute bands do so well in a society where, you know, big stadium shows aren't always in reach and don't happen very often. You know, like the Foo Fighters the last time I saw the Foo Fighters was 2019. And then obviously COVID and all that type of stuff happens. And then the kind of climate of the music industry has changed drastically. I actually found a ticket the other day of seeing Green Day in 2009 at the MEN, and the ticket was £38, which doesn't feel that long ago, 2009, whereas now it'd be 100 and something. So it's kind of come a, you know, being able to see a tribute band in your local town on a Thursday or a Friday night is something very important for getting people into, you know, discovering a band or the music in general. And it was, you know, some conversations with Jay after shows where I would pester him about his plexiglass guitar or his DG guitar and his, you know, it was kind of two mega fans' brains melding together to create this kind of how far can we take the authenticity of a tribute band to the point where there are, I think there's 4,000 photos in Jay and I's WhatsApp chat, and a lot of it is like, did you see that Dave's got a new pair of trainers? Here's the link. Or did you see that his wristband has changed size slightly? So maybe Jay comes with a bigger one or a smaller one, or he's like, oh, I've got a specific necklace, and it's kind of just morphed into a very normal thing for two people to talk about. But from the outside looking in, you know.
I'm so glad that you've said what you just said, Ollie, because that just makes you're the crazy fan, and I'm just, you know, being told what to do.
Well, I've seen living proof of this in action now, because what the listeners don't know is when we started this call, a lot of people have noticed Dave's got some new glasses and Jay has got those very same glasses. So the attention to detail, have I outed you there a little bit? Or I'm guessing you bought those for the stage.
Do you know what? I'll tell you the story. I was watching Graham Norton, and of course Dave sat there on the couch after the performance with these gold glasses on, and my wife goes, "Oh, you'll have to get those gold glasses, won't you?" And I went, "He's not going to wear them on stage; they'll fall off." And you know, just really, I'm just going to. Anyway, we were in York on Sunday having a wander around, and we stopped for a coffee, and it was my wife again who brought it up again and said, "Oh, so you're thinking of getting those glasses then?" I went, "No, I'm not." I said, "I don't need them." Anyway, I came home tonight, and she went, we just finished eating dinner a few moments ago, and she said, "Close your eyes and put your hand out." I put my hand out, and these glasses were in my hand. And that's it. Yeah, I'm afraid to say it's a place I don't shop, but clearly the girls do. It's called Primark, and in this case, they were £4.
I was going to say it's probably one of the cheaper Dave Grohl accessories, isn't it? That you've got, you know, DG Gibson guitar, what, a few grand, Dodge Ram van. Pair of £4 glasses from Primark. Yeah, so it's probably one of the cheaper ones that you've got your hands on.
I was thinking about this. They must be so. I mean, I very much doubt he'll wear them at, you know, like a full show, because they'd be so impractical. Because the guy sweats a lot, and it's hot up there, and when you're doing all that, so you just wouldn't be able to see.
He won't be wearing them. Anyway,
No,
I quite like him, actually. It makes me feel, like 1970s, America.
So what about you then, Ollie? Because obviously you're for want of a better word, the Taylor Hawkins of the band. And I mean, I guess it's got a different meaning now and carries a different weight of responsibility, doesn't it?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I guess it still feels a bit weird. The immediate aftermath of when Taylor passed away was quite a strange period. Mainly just because people, it was such a shock to everyone, and I felt like there was kind of a responsibility that we had as a band that were, almost some kind of representative of the Foo Fighters to go out and, perform and continue that kind of legacy, I guess. In a time where we were very uncertain as to what the future of the Foo Fighters was even going to look like. I mean, I presume that Dave wouldn't want to carry on without him, given their just unbreakable kind of bond that they had together on stage. I couldn't see a world where anyone else was sat behind the drum kit, which was clarified by being in Wembley Stadium when the tribute thing happened and watching, a whole revolving door of very talented and accomplished drummers sit behind the drum kit and just not do justice to how good and how underrated Taylor was as, the driving force of that band. And what I loved personally about watching the Foo Fighters live was, I mean, I would be glued to Taylor for the whole 2.5 hour show. It took me a while to realize what Nate and Pat looked like and what Rami looked like, because I just didn't, I wasn't interested. I would watch Dave because he's Dave, but I was always glued to Taylor because he's, so much of what I am as a musician is because of him and the way he played. And it was a strange thing to begin with, and it gets stranger in different ways now with, a drummer removed from him as well with Josh, quite a short tenure in the band, and Elan, the new drummer, is, a different kind of player as well. So it's getting more strange the more time that goes on, because the sound changes and the vibe changes. Like, I can't imagine Taylor playing Your Favorite Toy, because it's, it feels like it's rooted in a more of a disco style of drumming, or it's very tight. Rick, who is like Rick is our Pat, but he's also like our he's like our musical director without the title, because any time we need clarification about anything musical, I always just look at Rick, because he's so clued into what everyone needs to be doing. He and I were talking the other day about Your Favorite Toy is so it's a very tight drum line, which you don't get in a lot of Foo Fighters songs. It's very, like big open hi-hats, big crashes, and it's kind of like a big driving feel, whereas this is very, together and a different style of playing. So I guess it's trying to imprint how I would envision Taylor playing it if he were still alive, and what that needs to look like for it to not look weird is what I've kind of landed on with the newer stuff. But the old stuff is still, it's amazing to play. And I think I'm probably not alone in saying that when people think of the Foo Fighters, you know, Taylor was the drummer for 27 years. That doesn't just end because he's not here anymore. Like, your vision of what that band looked like on stage doesn't change. I feel like it evolves, and it's gone into this kind of newer lineup where they're going to have different sounds, I guess. But when the Foo Fighters are playing All My Life or whatever, it's almost like we're back in 2011, and it's them just at their absolute peak, you know, after Wasting Light came out. And that's kind of what I have in my head when if I'm ever like, oh, this is weird. Like 2023 specifically it felt weird because people were emotional, and I was emotional, and it was just a strange time to be in the band, and people would console me, or it was a strange, you know, role to inhabit. But I feel like I've got a bit more used to it now, and can just, you know, appreciate it for what it is.
I was going to say, yeah, I think part of that healing, really, in a way, is that we just decided that the way forward for this band was to celebrate Taylor Hawkins. And, you know, we ended up making a big steel hawk that we take with us everywhere and we use as our backdrop. Not dissimilar to what Dave and the Foo Fighters were doing after the tribute show and at the tribute show. Yeah, feels like we're still embracing the new songs, and we still want to be in the present, but we're kind of rooted in the past, really. Just out of choice.
Yeah, that's sure. That's perfectly understandable. Speaking of Taylor, Jay, I know you've got a really cool story about meeting him when you went to 606 and knocked on the door, didn't you?
Yeah, I must remember to. You have to ask Ollie about the time that he had a chat with Pat and Dave after a show, but we can come to that.
Yeah, we'll do that one next. But we're on Taylor.
More on Taylor. Well, you know, I was in LA on holiday with the family, and I just had in the back of my mind, I wonder where Studio 606 is. And it was in, as you know, it's in Northridge. And it was about 20 minutes from where we were staying in Venice Beach. And I said, look, I know it's a long shot, but I don't get to LA very often. Let's go and knock on the door at the Studio 606 and see what happens. So I was carrying my daughter that wasn't even, she was not even 2 years old. Because I thought, if I knock on the door holding a child, maybe they'll let me in. So I knocked on the door and I ended up speaking to reception, and I said, I don't suppose the Foo Fighters are in, are they, today? And she goes, yeah, they are. I said, really? Any chance of popping in? And she said, well, I don't know. Give me a minute. I'll come back to you. So she put me on hold. And then she came back and she said, oh, they've finished. Taylor's on his way out. Stay there. So Taylor pulls up in his red truck, naked to the waist, still. And he just waved me over and we just had a chat. And yeah, just a lovely, down-to-earth guy. He told me about his friend had a tribute band. I think it was a Police tribute band, and he used to go and play drums for them occasionally. Just, I don't know if if it was his friends, and they said, "Oh, we're a drummer short. Can you come and step in?" He'd go, "Yeah, okay, I'll come and step in." So he played in tribute bands. yeah, no, that's a long time ago now.
Presumably you told him about what you guys do then.
Yeah, did I miss that bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned it to the receptionist that I was in a tribute band and we play nationally and we play Europe and stuff. So, maybe that was something that the average person doesn't say if they go and knock on that door. So that might have been part of the reason why Taylor stopped and said hello, or maybe not. Maybe it didn't have to be the reason that he stopped to say hello. But yeah, I think from memory, I think I showed him in fact, I gave him a flyer for UK Foo Fighters, which had me on the front with Dave's guitar, and he sort of had a chuckle at that and put it on his dashboard and said, "I can't wait to show Dave this," as he drove off.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, Ollie, your post-gig story then, over to you.
It was Concrete and Gold at the O2 with Rick Astley, and I can't remember who else got out on stage at that show, but it was probably to this day the best that I've seen them, and had a good time as always. They opened with "I'll Stick Around," which Jay to this day still doesn't like opening with.
All right.
And I lost my voice, just singing along like a giddy little fanboy, and stayed over in London after the show, and I think I had like 14 cups of tea to try and just soothe it because it was just it was horrible. Anyway, the next day I was on the train back up north, and I was on Twitter, and I don't even follow this person, but it was Greg James from Radio 1's producer, forget his name, saying we're looking for people who were at the show last night for a potential segment on Radio 1 this afternoon, because they had Dave Grohl and Pat Smear in the studio. So I DM'd him and I just said, I can't really speak to you, but I've basically been reduced to a whisper because I can't speak because I just had such a good time. I lost my voice, shot. And he said, can I have your email? So I gave him my email, then just to verify I was a real person, I guess. And then I ended up calling him whilst I was on the train. And he said, "Oh, we've got this really cool concept for a segment where we basically get Dave and Pat to fix some of the potential issues that you may have faced, after a Foo Fighters show, whether it's you lost your wallet." It was kind of like an agony aunt type thing with Dave Grohl, basically. Anyway, they were in recording Greg James's show, and the guy said, "Oh well, I'll call you back in 5 minutes. When you answer that, what you'll hear is the live, wherever they're up to live in the show, basically, and then they'll just bring you in, like you'll just chime in to the conversation." So put the phone down. I lost signal on the train, and I'm thinking, "Oh my god, I'm about to potentially speak to Dave Grohl, and I've got no internet, and I'm on a train. This is a disaster." Anyway, they were late for some reason. I managed to get myself into the train station, and then the phone rang. And I didn't know if it was going to be Greg James or his producer, or whether it was going to be Dave on the other end of the phone. I had no idea, but it was Greg James, and they were kind of very obviously in the middle of their interview. And then Greg, I'm kind of just listening along, like, "Oh, I wonder if this is, where they've got up to so far," and I'm just on autopilot. And then he just goes, "Oh, and we've got Ollie." And I was like, "Oh, I've not thought about what I'm going to say, what I'm going to ask." I was extremely underprepared. And then when there's a pause on the other end of the line after Dave Grohl said something, usually it's you're watching him on an interview or you're listening to him talk, but it's like, oh, this silence that's currently happening is because he's waiting for you to answer. So I found myself actually stood having a chat with Dave Grohl in the Leeds train station and looking around like, no one knows who I've got on the phone right now. Like, I could I'm literally talking to Dave Grohl, and none of you even know. Couldn't tell you what I said. Couldn't tell you how long I spoke to him for. The whole thing was a blur until after, when it got put on BBC Radio 1's Facebook as a video clip with my voice in the background, and then everyone who's ever met me started messaging me going, "Is that you?"
And Ollie, hi Ollie.
Hi Greg.
So how's the voice holding up?
It's as you can tell, it's pretty bad.
Sound good, Ollie.
You're on with Pat and Dave. Hey Ollie, how you doing, man?
Hey.
I think he owes us a drink.
Yeah, man.
I was about to say, because we lost the bet, so thousands of people owe you guys a beer now.
Okay, so at what point do you think you lost your voice? Did it feel good and then you woke up this morning and you had nothing?
First song, man. I'll stick around. First song.
Oh, I like that.
Wow.
I like Ollie. He's a good one.
I use that for a while as a little flex. It just said, "I like Ollie. He's a good one." Quote Dave Grohl, direct quote Dave Grohl, 20 whatever year it was, on my Facebook page.
Where are you now, Ollie? What have you gone back to today in real life?
Well, I'm currently still on the way home.
You're still on your way home?
Still on the way home.
Hold on a second.
London,
I don't know if I'm going to blame this voice thing on my band. I think he's been out all night doing something he shouldn't have been doing.
This is your fault, Dave Grohl.
I don't know about that, Ollie. Let me tell you, here's a couple tips. If you feel like your throat is sore, a little bit of salt water, warm salt water, you can gargle that. Another one, vinegar, a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of warm water, mix that up, you can gargle that. Hot, like a toddy, like with some whiskey, little whiskey, a little bit of, also ibuprofen sometimes works too. It reduces the swelling and stuff. I'm telling you, I know what I'm doing here.
This is great. This has turned from a music chat into a sort of lifestyle chat.
You know, like if you're going to scream for 3 hours a night, you got to know what you're doing.
This is nice. A cooking and lifestyle baking show with Pat and Dave. This is quite exciting.
Right, yeah.
I mean, while we're on meeting the Foo Fighters stories, I guess the ultimate one, I know, Jay, you said that last time we spoke, this is kind of the story of your life, but it's quite fitting really, because they've just done the pop-up shows here in the UK, but Concorde 2 2014, one of the most memorable pop-up shows they've ever done, and you're at the centre of it, and it's got a hell of a backstory. So over to you. You've got to tell it again.
How many times has Ollie heard this?
I can tell the story word for word just as well as Jay can.
It's a long story, but I think the shorter version from start to finish is I used to have dreams about meeting Dave and asking Dave if I could get up on stage and play with them and stuff. And I've got memories from those dreams of like him politely sort of saying, yeah, well, maybe not tonight, and stuff like that. Maybe another night. I've got memories of hearing Dave talk about going to see a band, and it was his favorite band, and he could be the drummer in that band because he knew every single song. And he has this dream where he goes to the gig and the guy comes out before the show starts and said, we're really sorry, but the show's not going ahead because we haven't got a drummer tonight. Unless there's a drummer out there who could fill in and play for us. And, he puts his hand up and he ends up doing the gig. So, that's a bit of the background of me thinking, how do you ever get on stage with a band like that and perform? And then Ollie mentioned it earlier, around the first time they played Wembley, which I think was 2007. I never got to see that show because it clashed with our family holiday. So I bought the DVD and I used to watch the DVD. But I always had this memory from listening to the radio that one of the pop-up warm-up shows that they did was at Concorde 2. And they did that show before they played the Invictus Games for Prince Harry. And I just approached the venue a few months before the Foo Fighters played there in 2014 and said, I've got an idea for a show. I know the Foo Fighters have played that stage. I'd like to come and do a show there. They booked us to do the show. And there were a couple of hiccups with the arrangements. We had to move the date once, I think. We had to move the date once. And it got moved to my birthday on the 27th of September 2014. And we were planning to do something else that weekend as a family, but I said, okay, we'll do it that weekend. Anyway, the guy who owns Concorde 2 called me up a few weeks later, and I said, oh no, Russell, what's wrong now? Is there a date change again? And he said, no, you sat down. I said, okay, I'm sat down. He said, well, you're not going to believe this, but the Foo Fighters are coming back to Concorde 2 to do another warm-up show. I said, you're kidding me? When? Next week. I said, but I've not seen anything on any social media yet. He said, no. He said, I know. You can't tell anybody. Would you like to come? I said, yeah, I'd like to come. He said, okay, I'll put you on the guest list and come. So the lead up to that show was some conversations with Russell, the owner, about, is there a possibility of meeting them? And he said, oh, I'll find out on the day. And on the day, because it was the first time they'd been in the UK for a few years, like literally the world's press were there, it was impossible to meet them before the show. But the show started, and 2 songs in, Dave goes, hey everyone, there's a bit of pressure tonight. We've got England's premier Foo Fighters tribute band in the house, and we've been shitting the bed backstage thinking, oh, if we make a mistake, they're going to be like, that's not how it goes. And I was just blown away that I got a mention, by one of the biggest bands on the planet. Was name checking their UK tribute friends, or whatever you want to call us. And I'd never heard Dave talk about Foo Fighter tribute bands ever. So to be in the room for the first time that I believe in the press he ever talked or engaged with a Foo Fighters tribute band, I was just blown away by that. And, I just thought, wow. But a few songs later, he decided to see what I was capable of.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome me.
And he dragged me on stage, and I had no idea what we were going to play. He turned around, looked at Taylor, and they started to play White Limo, and he just gestured to the mic. That was my cue. So, yeah, I got to front the Foo Fighters. And it was phenomenal. Still, it'll stay with me forever, that moment. Just the energy around me on stage. I don't know, it just feels like the best show I ever played.
It's probably an understatement, isn't it? But it's funny. I asked you earlier about how many songs you've got rehearsed in any one time. I mean, the fact that it was White Limo that they picked, that's probably it's a bit of a test, really, because I mean, it's not a deep cut per se, but it's not like it was Everlong or Times Like These or something. Was it? He's thrown you in pretty hard there in terms of testing you, not only your knowledge of the song, but vocally as well. It's not the easiest one to do, is it? So,
well, I'm sure he just thought, I could do with a break this next song. Let me get this guy up. Which is probably why after we finished the song, he said something like, it was awesome. I was on vacation for 3.5 minutes. So he probably did just want a break. And I got it.
Yeah. When you got up there and he gave you a hug, did he say anything to you?
He didn't. It was all very fast. It was only like 2 weeks before my birthday, and we were playing the venue 2 weeks later. So when he gave me an opportunity to say something, I cheekily said, and we're here in 2 weeks' time on the 27th of September. In his ear. That was what I whispered in his ear. Then he went onto the mic and said, "Oh, they're here on the 27th of September. Give the guy a fucking inch."
Let's hear it for, what's your name? How are you doing? Let's hear it for Jay. He's a bad motherfucker. Look at that guy right there. Oh, and they're here on the 27th of September. Give the guy an inch and he takes a fucking mile. You know what I mean? That was awesome. Can we do that every night? That was great. I was on vacation for 3.5 minutes, man. That was awesome.
So, bringing things forward a little bit, obviously it was Foo Fighters' 30th anniversary last year, and we kind of all spent half the year really waiting for them to do something and get the anniversary celebrations going. But meanwhile, you guys were doing some pretty cool stuff, weren't you, with the Cavern and Abbey Road as well? So do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this musical journey, off the back of being in this tribute band, is one that I'm always thinking, how can we push the limits of tribute? How can we satisfy our souls and for me personally and for the guys, in the band as well, what can we do to make this a special journey? And also, when we're looking back on what we achieved, that it's credible in some way, because tribute doesn't, in some circles, tribute doesn't really get good airtime. And it's sometimes quite difficult to get airtime, when you're a tribute band. So yeah, I was keen to always kind of push the boundaries of what's possible. So I had an aspiration to, I had a dream. I was a massive Beatles fan as a kid. The idea of recording at Abbey Road was just another pipe dream. But I thought, maybe we could make it happen. I wasn't sure when. I then got an inquiry from the Cavern Club who said, we want to do a special show for the Foo Fighters, 30 years. Are you interested? So it all sort of came together around the same sort of time, which was towards the end of 2024. And then plans started to get put in place. And I thought, well, maybe this is the time to do it. And, once I set my sights on something, I tend to not give in. until
Hard
I
agree.
get
Ollie,
there.
yeah, I was going to say Ollie's nodding his head
He's
vigorously.
the most tenacious man I've ever met in my life in all the best ways.
Well, thank you, Ollie.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us about the Cavern show first of all, then, and tell us what you did at the start as your homage to the Beatles, shall we say?
Well, I mean, I guess when you play the Cavern Club, you can't not play a Beatles record. You know, it just felt like we had to do something, and I was just doing. We had some conversations actually in the band about what Beatles song we could play, but a few weeks before we were sort of really chewing it around as to what we would do. I saw a performance of Dave at some kind of awards ceremony with Jeff Lynne, and they were playing. I've forgotten the name of the song, Ollie.
Who's Hey Bulldog? It was Hey Bulldog.
There you go. They were playing Hey Bulldog, and it just sounded kick ass. Didn't sound like a Beatles song, you know. It just sounded great, and I thought, well, perfect, you know. Performed by Dave, not by the Foo Fighters, but yeah, Dave fronted the band, and it just sounded great. And I thought, well, we can't play Please Please Me or I Saw Her Standing There, or, you know, it needed to be something that kicked ass in some way. So yeah, in homage to the Beatles, we dressed up in black and white suits, and we opened with Hey Bulldog. And as you'll be aware, you know, the Foo Fighters dressed up in black and white suits for their performance on the Letterman show as well. So it just all worked. It all just came together. And yeah, we'll never play the Cavern Club again because I don't want to. I've done it, and it was a really special occasion. So in the same way, Dave won't invite me back on stage to perform with his band because we've done it. It was great.
I said I definitely don't want to play drums in a full suit ever again. That's for sure.
Brilliant. So, and then tell us about Abbey Road then, and how that all came about. And because I know that there's a little mini documentary out there, isn't there? But which I'd highly recommend people go and watch. But tell us about how that all came about.
Well, initially, I think it was 2019. We did some stuff at Maida Vale Studios, and the day after we'd done that session, Jay left the accommodation early because he wanted to pop into Abbey Road. I'm pretty sure you'd never been in, had you? You just went to see where it was and say that you'd been in, and did the classic Tenacious J move of picking up a business card with the intention of, you know, seeing the dream through. And the opportunity kind of came about, you know, early last year, late 2024, that there's a chance that we might get to go in and do some recording in there. And it was one of those cool conversations that, you know, I've been a part of, where Jay says we've got a potential opportunity here to do X. There's been a handful of times over the years where I've, you know, not believed him until we're, you know, on our way to London to load in. Yeah, in the van on the way to London to load in, you know, the night before we recorded in there. And it was, I'd never been past, and I'd never been in, or, you know, I'm not a Beatles nut, but I'm a Lord of the Rings nut, and I knew what was recorded in that studio, so I was very excited about the prospect of, you know, being in those walls where my favourite soundtracks were recorded, as well as everything else. I mean, even if you don't know what was recorded in there, you've heard of Abbey Road, and the album cover's legendary, and it was a surreal. It was a surreal moment walking in the front door and feeling like we're allowed to be in here, and we can kind of make ourselves at home for the time that you're recording there. And it's you hear people talk about somewhere being magical or being able to feel a kind of, an energy or a mystery around, a place that's got so much history, but you literally feel it the moment you walk through the door. It just feels like you've stepped into this, hall of fame of all music and what's been recorded there. And, the Jay's whole kind of concept for the name of the documentary that you mentioned, Dan, about inside these four walls. Because when we were thinking about it, it applies to the Cavern Club, as the kind of latter half of the documentary, but the people that have walked through those doors and the songs that have been made there, and the just the history behind the whole place, it's you can't even comprehend it, because we're in there doing our thing, and it doesn't feel like a real experience until probably much later, where we watched the documentary together and kind of got to look back and reflect on this crazy dream that Jay had, which we were all extremely fortunate enough to be included in and be a part of, as being in his band. And it was a cool thing to be able to give my mum an Abbey Road fridge magnet, knowing that her son had recorded some drums in there. That was a cool moment.
It's a real weird one for me, because when I say it's weird, it still feels like it was a dream, because I didn't sleep the night before. I could not sleep. I think I must have probably slept for an hour, and it got to about 5 o'clock on the day of recording, and they were like, right, okay, vocals, are you ready, Jay? And I literally could have gone to bed. I had to somehow find some energy to do the vocals. So, Jam, our keyboard guy, who's a professional editor and filmmaker to some degree, he was at the center of, with some of his friends and videographers and camera crew and stuff, he was at the center of the creation of Inside These Four Walls. And yeah, I can't thank him enough, because I get to watch that to actually remember what happened on the day in Abbey Road, and I bought a mug as well, which I have every morning. I have a cup of tea with it, so it reminds me of that I was there.
Yeah, I got a poster that goes on, and I'm like, oh yeah, nice.
And it changed. I tell you how it changes perspective as well. Now any reference to Abbey Road Studios that I read or hear about, or listen to someone else talking about going to Abbey Road, is surreal. It really is, because I never dreamed that it would be somewhere that I would record. And now I'm sat listening to people talking about recording there, thinking, yeah, I was there. So yeah, no, it was fantastic.
Yeah, because to most people, just going and standing on, I've literally stood on the steps and I've tried to do a photo on the zebra crossing with my mates without getting run over. And to me, that was enough, to be honest with you. That blew my mind enough, let alone to actually step foot and go to work in there. That's just awesome. So
yeah. And it was once we were in there, it was like going to work,
Oh yeah, we were focused.
Hey, shout out to the cafeteria at Abbey Road Studios. great food, great coffee.
There you go. Big shout out to them. Well, guys, it's been brilliant to chat to you. Before we wrap up, I mean, we're in sort of early March still now, and you guys have got quite a few gigs in the diary. What's coming up in the next few months, shall we say?
Well, this month, we've got Carlisle this weekend. We've got Sheffield, and then Wolverhampton.
Shout out Wolverhampton, my home,
yeah.
my original hometown. Yeah, make sure you get looked after there. Yeah.
Wales? Are we going to Wales?
Yeah, we're going to Scotland. We're going to Wales. We're going to. We've got a hell of a year. Yeah, festivals. Most major cities
that we're playing at that no one knows yet, and we don't know if we can.
You can't because I haven't signed the contract yet.
Oh, okay.
So.
Headlining Glastonbury,
yeah. Well, we'll just have to look out for that one then. We'll keep us in suspense. So where can people find you then if they want to look out for the nearest town that you're coming to?
Yeah, you can check what's on sale at ukfoofighters.co.uk and follow us on most social media channels at UK Foo Fighters.
A huge thanks to Jay and Ollie from the UK Foo Fighters there. It was really nice to bring it up to speed and talk about some new songs, as well as hearing about the stuff that they did to mark the FF30 celebrations. Abbey Road and the Cavern Club all sounded really good. And, you know, the Brighton Concorde 2 story, it's always nice to hear that one too. It's well told now, as Jay kind of pointed out in the past. But it's a pretty momentous moment for anybody who's a fan of this band, really, to be able to get up on stage and sing with them. So, you know, fair play. And that's it for this week. I've got something a little bit different planned for the next episode. It's a momentous occasion anyway, because it will be the 50th episode of Foos Files. Can't believe we've made it to 50. A lot of blood, sweat and tears have gone into putting this podcast together, but I do absolutely love it. And wow, to make it to 50 episodes, that's, yeah, just so chuffed about that. But also next week is Podcast-thon, which is a charitable initiative that I've signed the podcast up to be involved with. So, as I say, something a little bit different planned, all to be revealed next week, assuming that all the plans do come off, but just stay tuned and look out for that. But as always, thanks for listening to Foos Files, take care, and we'll see you next time.